Diablo 4 Server Slam. What you need to know and possibly do before you play. Let's go.
Let's go!
On May 12th through May 14th, starting at 12 p.m. PDT, the Diablo 4 Server Slam weekend is live, and you can play Diablo 4 once again. However, this time the max level is level 20, and this is going to actually have a lot of consequences on the content you can access. For example, we'll still get the Jeweler, which unlocks level 20, so we can craft gems, add sockets to gear, unsocket gems, and upgrade jewelry. However, the Occultist, which extracts and imprints legendary powers, unlocks at level 25. And if the max level is 20, that potentially means no Occultist and no legendary aspects.
Well, I guess we won't be doing that, will we?
Which is actually a major bummer, since it would be really cool to try out some of the builds after the big beta feedback changes. Maybe you'll get a lucky legendary drop, but probably not, because we learned that legendaries have had their...
I mean, yeah, we'll get legendary drops because it's bloated. However, none of it's going to matter because it all gets reset when the game launches anyways.
Drops adjusted to be what you'll see on the live servers. So legendaries will not be dropping from the sky during the Diablo 4 Server Slam weekend. So we will get to see firsthand how rare they actually are going to be. And if legendaries are really, really rare, it's going to be very important to get those legendary aspects you can get guaranteed from dungeons. So if you're interested in seeing which builds go well with what you can find from dungeons, I put together a top 9 best season starter builds guide, which utilizes only legendary aspects you can get from dungeons. Link in the description.
Check it out, guys. Check it out.
20 max also means the world boss Ashava is going to be really hard. No shame in switching to world tier 1 at the world tier statue in Kyovashad, just northeast of the waypoint, but definitely go after Ashava, because a new item can be earned if you defeat Ashava with a level 20 character, the Cry of Ashava mount trophy. This goes on the side of your mount, and it's one of Ashava's horns. Very cool. Ashava spawns are on May 13th at 9 a.m. PDT, and every 3 hours after that, ending on May 14th at 9 a.m. PDT. But that's not the only reward you can get this weekend. It's another chance to earn rewards from the first 2 beta weekends, which are the Initial Casualty title, just by reaching Kyovashad, the Early Voyager title by reaching level 20, and you also get the Beta Wolfpack cosmetic item by reaching level 20 as well. But if you're enjoying this video so far, don't forget to click the like button, as it helps me out so much, and consider subscribing.
We'll definitely have to get that loot this weekend, won't we? And make sure you guys hit level 20 so you can get the item drops. And also, if you guys haven't watched my last reaction on Diablo 4, you can if you want. You don't have to, but there will be Twitch drops as well, so make sure you guys tune in. I will be live streaming Diablo 4 this weekend on Twitch. Tune in at twitch.tv/Roachsaurus and claim your drops
if you want to see more Diablo 4 videos. Also, what's exciting about the Server Slam weekend is this will be the final version of the game. So it is time to go out of our way and test out the changes we saw from the beta feedback blog posts, which include a huge amount of class balance changes. Things like a flat 10% passive damage reduction added to the barbarian class. Also with that, the developers reduced the effectiveness of some damage reduction effects throughout their skill tree passives, so take that into account. This means the barbarian is going to be more tanky early on, and later on sort of going to balance out because those passives you would have gotten are going to be weaker. Maybe you may just skip those skills in general. We also learned that Whirlwind is going to deal more damage and consume more fury. Whirlwind was already pretty darn strong. I can't wait to see it now. It's going to be pretty crazy. I think it has potential to be probably one of the best endgame builds for barbarians. And then Double Swing was enhanced to refund all of its fury cost when used on stunned or knockdown enemies. This is a huge buff because previously it refunded 15 fury, but now getting the full cost of 25 fury back means you can double swing infinitely on stunned or knockdown enemies. I see tons of synergy.
That's going to be crazy.
With the aspect of shared misery legendary aspect. Now, when it comes to the druid who was doing 17 damage, I think we might see some changes.
I think we can all agree the druid class and the barbarian class at the beginning of the beta testing was very terrible.
Learned that companion skills will now deal heavily increased damage.
Good, good.
But definitely something I want to go try out. I think I'm going to definitely be making a druid who is focusing on companion skills. I know the build isn't going to be good unless they added some legendary aspects that we don't know about, because there is an absence of a ton of companion passive skills in the skill tree. There's an absence of legendary aspects for companion skills. The build just doesn't seem possible. I know there's some good uniques, but other than that, there's not much. So I'm hopeful to see if they added some stuff. But if you guys want to see me play the druid on the Server Slam weekend, I will be streaming on Twitch and YouTube. So check that out if you're interested. Honestly, I felt summons were just way too weak. The AI wasn't great. I mean, you could be standing next to a mob and the summons wouldn't attack. So I hope the targeting AI gets a little better too. Druids also had all their ultimate skills cooldowns reduced, which is awesome, because honestly, I felt like druid ultimates felt weaker than the other classes, with the exception of perhaps Petrify against bosses, which had an incredibly long duration and you could get a lot of value out of that. And then really interestingly, in the patch notes, they said that the usability improvements, there have been usability improvements made to maul and pulverize. I don't know what usability means, but it sounds to me like Werebear just got buffed, and that gets me excited. I'm excited about that. And one of the biggest buffs to druids, which I think people are sleeping on, honestly, it's really underrated. I think it's going to be one of the biggest buffs right here. Using a non-shapeshifting skill will transform a druid back into their human form. This is actually amazing because of how the skill Quick Shift works. Being able to switch forms when you use a non-shapeshifting skill may have just made hybrid builds, maybe even the best type of shapeshift.
Times 5% increased damage. Nice. So like when you're attacking as a werebear and you switch back to your regular form for a minute, you can deal 5% extra damage. That's pretty good, considering that happens a lot. I did try out the druid class on the beta testing, and like I said, it wasn't very good at the time, but it looks like they may have gave it a huge buff here.
Build to make, thanks to the 15% damage bonus you get when you change forms because of Quick Shift. This means a plus 15% damage bonus to all shape-shifting skills if you cast it when you're a human. So for example, you cast Storm Strike, so now you're a human. Then you cast Shred, which turned you into a werewolf, and you get plus 15% damage. Then you go and hit Storm Strike again, and then maybe you use your ultimate, and that will do plus 15% damage because you were just a human. So this is a very, very exciting change, and I think encourages weaving non-shapeshifting skills between each shapeshifting skill for bonus damage. Really, really exciting change. Now, when it comes to the Necromancer, we learned that summoned minions are going to die more often, requiring players to utilize corpses more often. I think this is a great change. The minions are definitely nearly invulnerable already.
I think that's the first class I'm going to try out on this beta testing is the Necromancer class. I didn't get to play it last time.
And making them die either from a limited duration or making them less tanky will make summoning them a more active spell, which is really much more fun than just summoning them once and then forgetting about the ability. I know most people are probably not going to like this because nobody ever said, hey, I wish my summons would just die randomly, you know? But I don't know. We'll have to see how much we can feel them dying off. Is it too much? Is it too little? Is it unnoticeable? I don't know. We also got a nice buff to the Book of the Dead. Many bonuses have had their stats increased. Sacrificing your minions in the Book of the Dead were already pretty dang good, but excited to see how big of a buff the Book of the Dead just got. And honestly, I already felt Book of the Dead was one of the better class-specific mechanics, quite honestly. A big one here is that the damage dealt by Corpse Explosion skill has been reduced. Really excited to see this because, I mean, I think Corpse Explosion was literally, it was free to cast. It actually generated essence instead of using it, and all it cost was a corpse, and it increased, you know, there were so many things that you could get in the necro tree by consuming corpses. Like you move fast, you deal bonus damage, you can have it generate essence, and it's just absolutely insane. Corpse Explosion was definitely overpowered, so we'll have to see how much it was reduced.
Hopefully they didn't nerf that a whole lot.
Balance change. And then finally, a cosmetic change. The brightness of skeletal warriors and mages has been reduced. Awesome. I can't wait to see how they look. They were definitely way too bright, floaty. I didn't like it at all. Excited to see what they look like on the Server Slam weekend. When it comes to rogue changes, Subterfuge skills has their bonuses increased. I thought Subterfuge skills were already pretty strong, but the rogue was definitely certainly a bit of a squishy class. Now, subterfuge skills include concealment, smoke grenade, poison trap, and dark shroud. Now, dark shroud was already pretty strong in my opinion, so I'm interested to see where it stands after this buff. Personally, that was the one I loved to go after. Smoke grenade was also quite powerful. I know a lot of people like poison trap, but dark shroud was my thing, and there are 2 legendary aspects that make dark shroud even better. So I think dark shroud could be imbalanced good now after this, but we're gonna see what kind of bonus it got. In addition to that, multiple passive skills have had their bonuses increased. I think that's good. I thought many rogue passives weren't that appealing. Hopefully instead of those like 4% close damage reduction, it's a little more, or applies to range damage as well. I thought the weapon mastery was kind of weak. Hopefully that one got buffed as well. All imbuement skills have had their cooldowns reduced. Cooldowns increased. That's not good. I think this is actually a very big nerf. Shadow imbue, in my opinion, is what makes the rogue so powerful. So I hope the cooldown wasn't increased too much, but maybe it's a fair balance change. We'll have to see, quite honestly.
I mean, Blizzard, I mean, they play around with this stuff, right? And they test it and they give it to us to test and get feedback. So I don't think they're going to make it like too debuffed, honestly, on the cooldowns. However, we will have to see.
I mean, Shadow Imbue was like, you use it, everything on your screen dies. They just changed the tooltip to that, but we'll have to see. I thought that's what made Rogue good, honestly, the imbuements. Moving on to Sorceress, we learned that Charge Bolt's damage was increased and the mana cost to cast it has decreased. I think this is a good buff, but the erratic nature of the spell is why other spells are chosen. We'll see if this buff is strong enough to warrant choosing the spell over the imbalanced Chain Lightning. I mean, there is a legendary aspect which makes your Charge Bolts actually chase monsters instead of wandering about aimlessly, so it could definitely be viable if the damage bonus to Charge Bolt was significant enough. But speaking of Chain Lightning, they actually already decreased in this notes the damage of Chain Lightning and reduced its effectiveness against bosses. If you guys saw my build video, you can see Chain Lightning does absolutely absurd amounts of damage. It literally just destroys everything on your screen, including bosses. So I'm curious to see how big of a nerf this actually is, but I think it makes sense considering how broken it was. It was literally the best ability in the game. I mean, Hydra was pretty good too, but I think Chain Lightning just a little bit better because of its clearing ability.
And again, I didn't get a chance to play this class, so I can't speak on it, but it sounds like they may have balanced it out more.
The Incinerate skills enchantment bonus. Now, if you're not familiar, Incinerate's enchantment bonus is that every 20 seconds a serpent spawns and incinerates enemies for 6 seconds, so it sounds like it will happen more frequently now. We also learned that firewalls will now spawn underneath enemies more frequently when using its enchantment bonus. Currently, firewalls enchantment was that each time an enemy takes burning damage, there's a 5% chance to spawn 2 firewalls underneath them for 3 seconds. Sounds like that 5% is getting increased and can be a powerful buff for the Fire Sorcerer. They also increased the lucky chance for the Meteor Skills enchantment bonus. So Meteor Skills enchantment bonus is lucky hit, 3% chance for Meteor to fall on enemies. Sounds like a good call to increase it. Honestly, out of all the class specific features, I honestly felt Sorcerers kind of had the weakest, other than Fireball. That's completely rigged, but I like these changes a lot. Trying to make some of the other enchantments compete with
Sorcy and Necromancer are definitely the 2 most powerful classes on Diablo 4 beta, and then followed by Rogue, of course, and then it went like Barbarian and Druid.
With Fireball, I think Fireball is still going to be the best. They didn't nerf it, and honestly, if you look at some of the gameplay footage of like Chain Lightning with the Fireball enchantment, literally just clears the whole screen in like 2 seconds. It's basically like saying when an enemy dies, explode their corpse. That's what the Fireball enchantment effect does. So that's rigged for sure, but it doesn't look like it's getting nerfed. Now, other than class changes, they also made a lot of general balance changes, like making elite monsters more CCable, so they can be CC'd twice as long before they eventually become unstoppable. Keep that in mind though, if you make a build that does increase damage to unstoppable enemies, that elite monsters do eventually go unstoppable, so that's how you know when an enemy's unstoppable. They also reviewed all class skills to confirm that all classes have access to sufficient skills that remove controlling and pairing effects. Now, of course, it is very important that every class has control and pairing effects. If you go to any build calculator and just type in the word unstoppable, every single class has something, and Necromancers are even better. They have immune. Blood Mist actually makes Necromancers immune, which is even better than unstoppable because you're also invulnerable. And so every class does have that, but I'd like to see if they added unstoppable to anything else since the last time we played. It would be kind of interesting because, yeah, I mean, Storm doesn't actually, like a Storm Druid doesn't have a skill that makes them unstoppable. They have to get Earth and Bulwark, right? Which is an Earth skill. There is no Storm skill that makes you unstoppable, for example. Just one example. Maybe they'll make Cyclone armor do it now, for example. Also, we learned from the developers that many legendary powers have had updates to their effectiveness. This is very vague saying updates. It sounds like it could be either a buff or a nerf. We'll have to wait and see what they change, but it could definitely change a lot. I'm not entirely sure what, I mean, this could change a lot, honestly, but we'll have to see. They snuck some changes in there. Also, class balance changes weren't the only thing to check out during the Server Slam weekend, though. You'll also want to see the changes made to encounters such as bosses like Tachort, Malnok, and Venard. These were all reevaluated for melee character difficulty, resulting in changes to attacks and fight mechanics. Lots of bosses were made.
That's very good. That's very good. Because I know some of these attacks, man, with the mechanics on the boss fights, like when you're a melee class or whatever, ridiculous hard, or it wasn't like ridiculous, but it was a lot harder than, say, playing Sorcy or Necro.
Melee unfriendly, and it sounds like maybe they won't be as much in the final release. We also learned that the Butcher has been reevaluated for difficulty.
That dude is OP as fuck.
Will pose a greater challenge in World Tiers 3
Greater
and
challenge.
4. That's awesome. And considering how many players were
I already thought he was hard enough.
I'm glad to see the added difficulty. The Butcher is going to be the hard mode hardcore character killer. I mean, I just imagine the Butcher is going to kill so many hardcore characters. It's going to be insane. And then finally, if you're like me and many others and you're confused, why do sellers even exist? Well, turns out there was some bugs that they fixed. Basically, the point of a seller is to get a guaranteed elite kill, and they fixed an issue where the guaranteed elite monster would be absent from a seller. So you go into a seller and there's like a few mobs and you're like, oh, that's it? Why did they even come here, right? Well, they're supposed to be in a guaranteed elite monster kill. In addition, they also increase the chance for a dungeon event to occur in sellers. So dungeon events, those usually end with like getting obols, which are the gambling currency, very important. And I think this is a very good change because, once again, I think it was just too low. The chance was just too low for an event to occur. And then we also learned that the reset dungeon button won't be there like it was in the last open beta. Instead, it takes 60 seconds to reset automatically, or 90 seconds if the dungeon is not cleared. Just exit the dungeon and wait that long, and the dungeon resets automatically. There were also changes to a lot of the dungeons in Fractured Peaks. For example, players were doing lots of backtracking within certain dungeons, and Blizzard has optimized multiple dungeons.
Yeah, that was fucking annoying. Like, that was that's one thing I didn't like about the experience, was backtracking through dungeons, or say you had to kill every single fucking enemy before you could progress through the dungeon. So there'd be like one bat at the fucking entrance you missed, and you had to go all the way back and kill it just to keep moving forward.
Dungeons across all zones to minimize the need for backtracking, and the list of dungeons specifically in Fractured Peaks, which received layout updates, is listed in the patch notes. I have that in the description below if you want to check that out. Now, what sounds great is that they said that they reduced certain kinds of backtracking, which detracts from a player's experience, which in my opinion, backtracking is super boring. I definitely remember doing quite a bit of that. Really what they did is they made the objective along the main path instead of having to go out of your way and find it. So I think it's a great change. It's definitely boring to just watch your character run for 20 to 30 seconds just to continue progressing through a dungeon. They also increased the chance for an event to spawn inside of a dungeon from 10% to 60%, which is huge. That means the majority of dungeons you do will have an event within it, which means more obols and more incentives to do dungeons. It's awesome.
Okay.
It's a great change.
That's a good change, yeah.
To reduce the need to backtrack, once again, whenever you have the objective to kill all monsters, those monsters are actually going to run towards you, so you don't have to seek out that one lone monster, which is awesome.
Good.
And then also the font.
That's what I want to hear.
I don't know if you guys knew about this. The sans serif font used in game has replaced with a new serif font. So pretty exciting.
I don't give a fuck about
honestly,
font.
I thought both were good, but if it's an improvement, I will take it. And this is not even the full list of changes. I will link that full list of changes in the description if you want to check it out. But tons of things to go out of your way, take notes on, pay attention to when you go to the Server Slam weekend. Just keep an eye out for these changes, test them out, see if you like them, and be prepared for the consequences that come with these changes. Either way, don't forget that the early download for the Server Slam weekend starts on May 10th at 12 p.m. PDT, which is less than a week away. And don't forget, none of the character progress saves beyond the Server Slam weekend. Now, if you aren't sure what build to go yet for the Server Slam, you should check out my top 9 season starter builds video on your screen now, which gives you an in-depth breakdown of why these builds are perfect for your first character, and it has a build for every single class. So give that a click, and I'll see you there in just a second.
Well, there you guys have it. That is the updates for the Server Slam. That's what you need to know. And make sure you give Toy Hose a like and sub also for this awesome video. Also, guys, there's one thing I want to add to it before you click off this video is make sure you update your graphics driver before you play the server slam. I know they pushed out a graphics driver specifically for the game or to improve on the game's compatibility or whatever. Just make sure you do that so you don't have any complications ahead of time. Happy slaying. Make sure to drop a like and hit the sub button if you guys enjoyed this content and want to see more like it. Until then, I'll see you on the next one.